So today we're going to take a look at what's going to happen if the Saudi Arabians try to form an empire in the modern day. This video is going to be very unrealistic. All the events that are going to happen are purely fictional. Before we get into this video, I want to ask you guys to subscribe to the channel, also to the second channel. But with all those things said, now let's get right into the video. Now, Saudi Arabia has a very decent military in the modern day. More so, they have good money. They have a lot of oil money and they can probably strengthen their military. Oh yeah, shout out to A History for giving me this map. It's much more high quality than what I used before. But the Saudi Arabians in the modern day already have a pretty strong military. Right away we can see that they start things off by declaring war on Qatar as well as Bahrain. These two countries are very small, and so the Saudi Arabians would not have a hard time defeating these guys. We can see that they start a push in, eventually getting to the capital city of Qatar, after which the country surrenders. Bahrain that happens. In a peace negotiation, we can see that both Qatar as well as Bahrain got completely annexed by the Saudi Arabian Empire. I would want to call this the Caliphate because of the Caliphate history that Saudi Arabia has. We can see that right after these invasions, they go ahead and declare war on Kuwait. Once again, because Kuwait is a pretty weaker country, and so we can see that the Saudi Arabians now push in, and we can see that eventually they were able to capture the capital city. They push around and take over the entirety of Kuwait. After a few months, this is all the progress made, and the remaining parts of Kuwait also go ahead and surrender. This was another victory for the Saudi Arabian Empire. Again, in a peace negotiation, we can see that all of Kuwait got completely annexed by the Saudi Arabian Empire. Now, these were the weaker neighboring countries of the Saudi Arabians. Now, I guess except for Jordan, everyone around them is pretty formidable, so they're gonna have to up their game. We can see that the Saudi Arabians now recruit more and more troops. They try to strengthen their military, import new weapons from the United States. After all these preparations, and after years of waiting, we can see that the Saudi Arabians now continue with their expansion, now going ahead and declaring war on Yemen. I mean, it's fairly reasonable. They have not had good terms, and yeah, things are not looking good for Yemen. As now we can see that the Saudi Arabians push in and they secure the coastal regions. Eventually we can see that one Saudi Arabian army pushes in, capturing the capital city of Sana'a. This was a huge blow to the Yemenis' morale. The Saudi Arabian navy also comes into action, taking over this island. These troops continue their push down, securing the main regions of Yemen. This army continues its push, now encircling a lot of Yemenis' armies down here, which then go ahead and surrender. And these troops continue their push up. Eventually, after they lost all of their coastline, we can see that the remaining parts of Yemen go ahead and surrender. This was a decisive victory for the Saudi Arabians as they won against a major country down here. I know the Houthis are doing their thing, but yeah. At this point, we can see that they send out ultimatums. These ultimatums were sent to the UAE and Oman. Both of these guys do not accept the ultimatums, and so the Saudi Arabians get angered by this. They want to kind of unite the Arabian Peninsula under their own control. And yeah, they're not happy with what these guys did. So after a few years, we can see that the Saudi Arabians now declare war on Oman as well as the UAE. So yeah, now let's see. The Saudi Arabians start their push into the UAE. They meet some resistance here because the UAE also has a pretty decent military, but compared to the Saudi Arabians, it's nothing. Eventually, we can see that they lost Dubai as well as Abu Dhabi, which was their capital city. The Saudi Arabians push into Oman now, with their goal being capturing the capital city. In this process, we can see that they were also able to cut off the southern parts of Oman from the northern parts. After being cut off, they go ahead and surrender. And after a decisive battle, we can see that the capital city of Oman was captured. The Saudi Arabians push up, and eventually we can see that most of the important parts of the UAE were captured and the remaining country surrenders. These troops now push down, securing the coastal regions, and yeah, eventually after all this chaos, the remaining parts of Oman also go ahead and surrender. And in a peace negotiation, we can see that both these countries got completely annexed. And finally, the Saudi Arabians have united the entire Arabian Peninsula under their control. And with all these regions secured, wait, this kind of reminds me of something. I'm pretty sure it's nothing. Anyways, with all these regions secured, we can see that now they're going to be focusing their troops up in the north. Yeah, right away, they're going country after country. They go ahead and declare war on Jordan, but Jordan is smart and they know that they're going to get screwed over by the Saudi Arabians. They accept defeat and they give up their country. Pretty unfortunate stuff, but that happened. After all this expansion done by the Saudi Arabians, some countries around them feel really threatened. These countries include Iran, Iraq, Syria, the Israelis, and pretty much everyone, because they know that these guys are doing some crazy expansion down here. They might just get targeted. Even the Israelis are right now worried, though in real life they have some good terms with the Saudi Arabians now. The Iranians are really not happy with what's going on down here, so they started to build up their own army. And in the meantime, the Saudi Arabians were also focusing on their military. After some time, they go ahead and declare war on Iraq, and this really does not sit well with the Iranians, who already hated the Saudi Arabians for what they were doing. This is a huge threat to them because if Iraq lost this war, they would have a direct border with the Saudi Arabians. Anyways, let's see. Because the Saudi Arabians have a far better military now, at least after all these years of preparations, we can see that they push in and they cut off the Iraqis from the Persian Gulf, and now they start a push up. We can see that they are pushing up the Euphrates River. Eventually, we can see that they get to Baghdad, the capital city of Iraq. They capture the capital city and they continue their push up. But at this point in the war, yeah, things are not looking good for the Iraqis. Even though they do have some military, they were not able to push these guys back. Now the Saudi Arabians start to push around. They start to cut off Iraq into many parts. They kind of do this. Although the main regions are now secured, and eventually another army now goes up. They go up the Tigris, I guess that's somewhere here, and after losing most of their armies, the remaining parts of Iraq go ahead and surrender. But this was not a good decision for the Saudi Arabians, as because of their crazy expansion, we can see that a few of these countries decide to form a coalition against these guys. Of course, the main country here is going to be Iran. We can see that the Syrians join in, so do the Israelis, and finally we can see that the Turks also join in. Here, things are not looking good for the Saudi Arabians. The combined military of all these countries is much better than the Saudi Arabian military. But yeah, let's see what happens here. We can see that the Iranians now start to push into Saudi Arabia. They're securing the coastal regions down here, making some progress. The Turks also start to push in and they capture the northern parts. And from here, the Israelis also push in. What's happening here is this is not a coalition where all these countries do this together, but basically Iran first declares war on Saudi Arabia, then Israel does the same. And it's not like Israel and Iran had some connection here. They're just doing their own stuff. The Israelis also now start to push down and they secure the coastal regions of Saudi Arabia. The Syrians make some small gains here, but not too significant. The Iranians continue their push down. They're making some good gains down here. They continue their push, sending even more troops to the front lines, and they pretty much secure all of the Kurdish regions of Iraq. The Israelis continue their push down. But yeah, at this point, the Saudi Arabians are able to mobilize some of their forces. They sent them to the front lines and these troops still have not arrived. This gives the Iranians the opportunity to take over all these regions down here. They now get to Qatar. The Israelis also do their thing, and the Turks are also sending in more and more troops. But here something amazing happens, something amazing for the Saudi Arabians. They knew that all alone they were not going to be able to win against these guys, and so they were able to drag in some countries here to help them fight these coalition countries, and these countries include Pakistan as well as the Egyptians. Yeah, that's about it. But this is going to change a lot of things for these countries now that there are some new fronts. And with these new fronts, the Pakistanis now start to push into Iran. Most of the Iranian troops were down here, so they're easily able to push in. We can see that because most of the Israeli troops were down here, the Egyptians now start to push in and they capture some regions of Israel, and things are not looking good for the Israelis. The Turks, however, they don't have to worry about anyone, so they kind of still do their thing. But over here in Iran, really losing land because of the far superior Pakistani military and because their troops were down here. So yeah, because of this, the Iranians had to send back their troops because the Pakistanis are going crazy. Because they had to send back their troops, the Saudi Arabians also mobilized their forces and they push back the Iranians, and they are pushed back all the way to their borders. We can see that the Israelis also go back. They're gonna go back to defend their own country here, so they also get pushed back. But the Turks, nope, they continue their thing. Eventually, with the arrival of the Iranian troops, the Pakistanis are slowed down, but they still are making some significant progress. Eventually, a combined Saudi Arabian and Egyptian army pushes in. They were able to capture Jerusalem, and yeah, Israel falls. Wow, I really forgot about Syria in this coalition. And GG's to Syria. Yeah, they lost Damascus. The Turks continue their push down, eventually getting to Baghdad, and they kind of secure the city. The Pakistanis now start to push up. Their goal is to get to Tehran, but now they are kind of stopped by the Iranian troops. But the Saudi Arabians also start to push into Iran. Over here in Syria is falling and things are not looking good for these guys. And eventually at this point, the Saudi Arabians do start to focus on the Turks, who have done a lot of damage to the Saudi Arabians. Eventually the Saudi Arabians and the Pakistanis meet up. A combined army now pushes up, and eventually we can see that they were able to get to Tehran because the Iranians lost most of their troops over here to the Pakistanis. So they kind of lost the city. They capitulate, not just because they lost their capital city, but also because they lost their armies. They didn't have anything to fight with. Syria falls. and the Turks are now left alone. They know that they're not going to be able to win against all of these guys, so they decide to retreat from Iraq. And because they do that, these guys allow them to get out of this war. But now let's look at a peace negotiation here. And in a peace negotiation, we can see that Iran lost most of their territory. The Pakistanis also took some parts. There is no more Israel, it's just Palestine now. The Egyptians took these parts of Syria, and the remaining parts of Syria are now under the Saudi Arabian control. And this is the Saudi Arabian Empire at its peak. So this is going to be it for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and tell me what you guys want to see in the future. And thank you for watching.